mission, vision, and value. I thought if we're talking about our working groups and strategic direction of our working groups and funding for our working groups, maybe we go circle around to what we're doing it for, what this funding is for, what we're supposed to do. So Juan Carlos, because I can see you, I'd like you to read the mission, and then maybe you pass to someone else to read the vision and pass to someone else to read the values.
Okay. Our goal is to become a Schelling point for the token engineering community. Our economic layer will fund projects that discover, develop, and proliferate the best practices for engineering safe tokenized economies, while aligning our collective success with the individual benefit of token holders. Our social layer is even more important as it will unite the token engineering field around the ethical principles, standards, tools, and methodologies that emerge as this nascent field advances. I will pass to Edu on the vision.
Thank you, Juanca. Vision, oh, well, that's a short one. The vision enable the creation of ethical, safe, resilient, and diverse economic system to benefit societies around the world. And I think it's fit. I will pass it on to Libby for the values.
Our commons operates from a pro-social, human-centered perspective and prioritizes the advancement of token engineering over short-term profits. Integrity, curiosity, constructive inquiry, presence, and gratitude are foundational for maintaining mutual respect within our growing community. We encourage our members to be radically open source, non-hierarchical, transparent in their intentions, and accountable for their actions.
Nice. It's almost like a religious ceremony, wasn't it? Or is it just me? It's very nice to hear. All right, cool. So I want to ask if all of the working group leads can drop their drafts for their working group funding in this section here, just so that we can share them. Everyone has a chance to look at them as we talk about them today. Now, I thought of it few ways about how we could possibly structure this conversation to facilitate dialogue around working groups. And I think the way I think might be the most helpful is if we just start with going around and having everyone present in this call, actually, but especially the working group leads who have spent time and are sort of thinking about it and trying to figure out the right structure for their for the funding of their working group, share what they think are the considerations around what they had tried to think about, some things that they might have observed that they haven't figured out, and other considerations around just anything that comes to mind when we're building these funding proposals. And I would maybe set a timer for 2 minutes each, but I don't want this to be rushed. So if you need more time, maybe just note and we can reset it for another minute or two. And I'm really, I thought what Olivia, you said yesterday in the meeting, in the stewards meeting, really sparked some interest for me. So if it's okay, may I ask that you get this round started?
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry I didn't put anything, didn't write down anything because it feels like there's not much to write down, but I can do that along this meeting if you think it's important. But the idea is just to use the framings that we have building for rewarding contributors. So using the reward systems, hopefully we'll have this combination of praise and source credit and Alexandra up and running, and then meetings, subjective contributions, and objective contributions, that happen in the day by day can all be tracked and rewarded by the system. And then if there is something that needs specific and a specific amount of funds, like let's say we need to develop some type of product or tool, then we make a proposal for the DAO with a very specific outline following the proposal template with the needed amount of funds and what are the outputs and all of that. And then if the DAO agrees to it, then that work would be developed within the working group, but using those funds.
Okay, and are there any considerations that you think working groups should consider when writing their own proposals?
We brought up in the retrospective too of this balance between foundational and structural work with token engineering work. So how to be mindful of the need of the funds we are applying and how they're affecting the functioning of the whole and how they are supporting token engineering projects to be developed.
I am wondering if I can make a request. This is my first council, and I'm wondering if people can say which working groups they lead for people in the room.
Right,
that
it's
don't know.
our first council too.
Oh, what?
It's actually the inaugural council meeting. So you
Welcome
can
to
say you
Web.
were there for the inaugural council meeting.
Welcome to Web3, where you enter in on first things without knowing it all the time.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Livia, I'll allow you before you pass it on.
I lead the SoftGov working group, and I'll pass to Chewy.
Thanks, Livy. I lead the comms working group, and I'll add our proposal or our draft, I'm sorry, to the link. I'll pass it to Juanca.
Actually, I'm just gonna, for those who joined late, you missed the beautiful reading of the mission, vision, and values. So I would definitely encourage you to take a few moments and reread it. I was just thinking it felt really nice to hear it again, and maybe it was a good starting point for remembering what we're doing all of this for and what the funding is for. And then I thought, which actually ties in nicely to what you just said, Livia. And then we're going to start with sort of going around where everyone can basically share considerations that either, if you're a working group lead, considerations that you yourself have have surfaced or have observed when you were writing the proposal. Or if you're not a working group lead and you didn't work on a proposal, just some considerations that you think maybe we should be mindful when taking into account funding for working groups. And I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes for everyone. Should I pass back to you, Chewy?
Yeah, sure, Tom. Okay, so for comms, we have I feel that we have like a really unique perspective because it's also like about like contributors, right? So I go back in my own experience to what most of the time goes wrong with like advertising like agencies, and since comms is part of like some functions that could be considered as like services that can be provided. I feel that we have like a really I take the commitment very seriously, right? To make our cultural build be reflected on how we
educate, let's say, and guide these contributors uh, to be able to like engage with different token engineering projects and be able to provide like com services. So I definitely feel that it's a challenge. Most of these contributors come from a very like unfair industry, and I feel that this has to be taken in account for funding. So I wanted to give you like this context and this background because I feel that there are definitely some details that we need to take care of for being able to provide this cultural build to new contributors that can also be related to other projects. I pass it to Juanca.
Okay, thanks, Chuy. I don't have like a Google Doc just for it. It's in the Gravity working group call notes. So I am going to use that link and maybe create like a new one for this. But like the idea, I think that I have like one raw idea and maybe like two split ideas. So like the raw idea is to become a gardens. I think that would be good to have a way to have a reputation system and also to manage funds. And I liked Bye Bye's idea. He wrote it in the Discord. Um, I can share my screen so that you know what I'm talking about. So Bye Bye said, what if we make a proposal on One Hive for partnership where we offer some sort of gravity support assurance for all the communities and DAOs listed on Gardens? I think that's a good place to start since these communities are interested in organizing their DAOs with a community perspective. And gravity would certainly add value to the ecosystem. Moreover, this allows us to have a place to build reputation, receive stats, which can help us reach more DAOs. And I have like a list of prices, like as services, that I think that can be like offered, and it's like setting up your organizational gravity, making tailored graviton trainings to organizations, have like a yearly insurance for an organization like that will cover the fees of managing the conflicts through 1 year, and also a monthly insurance, and managing one case external to the organization 800. It's like a very raw idea.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that, Juanca. I guess when you have a chance, maybe you could just pull it out into a separate doc and drop it in here. Or if you want to just drop the notes in there, maybe we could sift through there to find them. But yeah, it's thanks for sharing that. And then do you want to pass to another working group lead?
Yeah, to Septi.
Oh, thanks, Juan. Yeah, we were drafting something with Ivy and Edu yesterday. And yeah, basically what we did is what's not so cool as Juan. So I feel bad now. But yeah, we more or less, I don't know if you can share the screen so everyone can see, or I can do that too. Okay, thanks, Sam. Yeah, we basically put the time we're putting on transparency, and then yeah, we just put an average hour cost. Like for example, like recordings, you can do recordings and be doing something else. So this is cheaper than average hours, and yeah, this is more or less what we drafted. So it would be like between 700, 800 DAI a week. And yeah, then we also had some ideas to offer it to other DAOs, but first we need to review the audit because right now it's very TC focused, and we want to make it more, more a better product so it applies to all DAOs. Yeah, I'll pass it to Ivy since she also leads it.
Thanks, Zetis. But I think you covered basically everything. But I just want to say that these other two proposals, we just leave it there. So like we have other options if we would need more funding. But the first proposal is taking into consideration only me and Zepti. But if there will be more contributors joining us, and this only based on what we're currently doing, if there would be more tasks in the future, so yeah, we might change this proposal. And we also put there that when if there will be unused budget, let's say we receive funding from the DAO and then there will be unused budget, we will carry it over to the next proposal or to the next cycle, and then we'll be requesting less fund since we still have a remaining budget. So that's it.
Thanks,
That's
Ivy. Sorry, Zepti, did you have anything else you wanted to share? Because I do have some questions for both of you. This is per week for 2 people. That's the budget. That's the proposal.
Yeah, but this is like transparency work. Like, for example, Ivy also work on comms, and
I see. So this is the budget for transparency, no matter how many people are in the transparency working group. So this is the funding for the transparency working group, regardless of how many people are in the transparency working group.
I mean, this is the work that is being done right now in transparency. So if in the future, there is some other stuff we're gonna do, but me and Ivy, for example, we wanna revisit the audit, but right now neither me or Ivy are working on it because we're doing other stuff. So if more people join, then this is just me and Ivy because it's who is working there right now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think it'd be helpful if that was really, if you somehow could specify that. And also, I don't know if you're planning to do a vote every week, but perhaps put this figure into the form of what it'll be on the proposal. So if it's 1 month or 3 months, maybe creating the total value of the proposal that you'll be using might be helpful too.
Okay, yeah, we were thinking on doing it monthly, since, if someone new comes to the working group and, it starts to put time, do not, I don't mind, for example, for myself, like get delayed, but if new people comes, it's cool to, get them paid when they do the work actually, so. We were thinking monthly, and we were thinking we're just thinking on doing a template, and and Ivy was offering to just monthly update the template. Yeah, go ahead, Griff.
I would strongly recommend at least starting out with like 3 to 5 months of funding and then being able to propose later that you do it monthly, but on the outset getting some funds that you have for working capital so that you don't ever run out, you always have some in the bank.
I'd also like to add, if you're asking people to vote every month, it might be fatiguing for the people you're asking to vote. So perhaps for the sake of the community, the fewer votes we have to do might have increased the chances of actually these votes getting passed. I don't know how that'll work with the correlation between the amount being voted and the required support. But yeah, that's the other thing. I don't know. Yeah, I guess another consideration is how many votes we actually are expecting to have people have to vote on.
Yeah, I actually agree with what you were saying. Like, but at the same time, doing it more frequently, it adds mutual accountability. If you are asking, 10 years, or, and of course I'm exaggerating, but the thing is, like, the faster and recurrent it is, it's more accountable.
This is very true, but at the same time, you've been doing this for almost a year at this point, and I think that there's a lot of trust in the community, and you've already proven yourself, and you've been accountable for doing this, and so like it just like for your own business model and for your own like stability, who knows how long these conviction votes will take to pass when you have to submit them and stuff. So like if you held, you could still do it every month, but always have like a 2-month buffer so
Okay.
that you can continue the progress. If you just for the first one do 3 to 5 months and then continue to do it every month and re-up, because that way your DAO can sustain itself with confidence, and that you can hire people and they know they'll get paid for the next 3 months, and there's no fears about the DAO changing their mind or something.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for your feedback, guys.
You want to pass it?
Oh yeah, I'll pass it to Nate.
Hey, yeah. So I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I think just kind of my observations is something I want to go with right now. There are a lot of working groups are going to be. I think it's a good idea that each working group has their own system for managing this, the rewards. However, I do think that there are a lot of different things like stratification of pay and things like that, where people get different pay based off different roles is problematic, where we're going to end up managing conflict more than we need to. I think a UBI model is my long-term view of things is the route to go, but I also don't think we have the infrastructure for that at the moment. Each work group is different. Most of the development, whether it be params, common swarm, or TEC labs, are going to mostly be proposal based from what I can tell. Big projects, they fund it and you move on. And then you have things like SoftGov, which will be, relying on the reward system, which is great because there's not a lot of, big projects that come up, but you want to reward the people that participate. And then you have your service type DAOs, which is like Gravity and Comms, who are going to actively be looking for other sources of revenue. And so there are a bunch of different pathways we can take, but let's see. I just get worried that if we separate ourselves from the reward system, like a holistic, comprehensive reward system for all of the TEC, that will kind of lose touch with, the unity that we have within working groups. But yeah, those are just some of my thoughts on it, and I would really like to see the UBI model, but I'll go ahead and pass it to Mitch.
Nice timing. I definitely have to echo a lot of Nate's thoughts of just like this separation and like kind of like building these like closed substructures, I think, and a lot of it comes from working groups wanting to become separate entities and wondering how does that, come back together into like the greater community that we're trying to build, even before we've launched our full commons. So it's like one thing that kind of concerns me about how that might feel like there's walls being built, like, imaginary walls. And the other thing is, how do we want to build collaborating between working groups? I can see a lot of different projects and working groups doing stuff that requires work from other people, So, I mean, Comms is doing a Twitter campaign that's about stuff that's in parameters, and so you need parameter guys to like go through it. And so how are you going to be billing that collaborative work? And the same stuff here with the SoftGov, we're building these reward systems. I think that's part of SoftGov. But really, you're going to need the developers that are working in parameters or Common Swarm to do this kind of stuff. So how are we going to be more collaborative, and how are we going to build that basically, or incorporate it into our budgets? And I will pass it to Eduardo. Have you gone yet?
Thank you, Mitch. I share the sentiment of Mitch and Nate. I remember having this conversation that Saturday on Paris, and I feel that this sub-DAO kind of concept, it's a little bit tricky. Like I just had this image of dismantling something, not necessarily dismantling, but the feeling of dismantling before finishing the process of building something. It's weird for me to see it in that perspective. I do understand the need of letting certain working group or spaces grow up a little bit more, like Gravity and this kind of stuff. They because of what they tackle, they need to have a DAO kind of approach in order to grow and evolve. And then there is this crossover, well, as Mitch explained, about having this people working in many working groups, as I mentioned in the previous Steward meeting the other day. I feel that there is no such thing as a solution. We don't have a solution for this. I think we just have to try it out and see how it works. But I would like to see a high level of sense making, in the sense that making sure that the people who are being part of these working groups are sort of satisfied with this process, and having a nurturing process with the community, and having people, subject matter expert from other communities like One Hive, just do a small check-in and feedback on this process once it's clear, just to see, having an external perspective over this, maybe will be clearer for everyone. But yeah, over that, I think orientation is getting handled by Shula, so I don't have much to say regarding the budget proposal in that sense. And then I will pass it on to Libby. Have you gone?
I think there's only 3 more working group leads who haven't spoken yet. And then maybe we could pass to other people too, but I'd love if the working group leads could have a chance to speak first.
Sure, Griff.
Yay! Because I just completely disagree with Nate, Mitch, and Eduardo on this one, which is great. I mean, it's good to have different opinions. I do like the fact that we will have one reward system for everyone in the TC, and that's the reward system. But conviction voting is very suited for the use case of dividing and scaling horizontally and pursuing parallel paths. And I think it's a lot easier to have, and a lot more DAO-y in a way, to have 10 small groups that are coordinating to advance token engineering and manage the community and manage different systems, than it is to scale vertically and have one big organization that standardizes pay and standardizes all of these things, and tries to coordinate a group of what will be 50 to 100 people with one standard that doesn't quite fit the needs of every project and process, versus conviction voting, where it's very well set for making lots of small funding proposals, or of varying size, and then continuing to top up and even being able to pursue parallel paths, which in some ways is difficult, right? But for my working groups, it's perfect, because for my working groups, I don't expect to make a standard proposal. I will do for both the parameters working group and the Common Swarm, we will end up doing one-off project-based proposals. We write a spec, we propose that spec, we propose the funding we need, we go and find a team. Maybe that team is One Hive, maybe that team is Raid Guild, maybe that team is Giveth devs, who knows? And maybe some of these projects will be cross-pollinated by multiple conviction voting DAOs. And that way we can actually have competing dev teams trying to provide value to this economy. And this is my main thing, is that this is an economy, not and trying to structure it as an organization is, I think, in my opinion, it's a mistake, and it's a we will end up being less DAO-y than we would prefer, because we'll scale vertically and end up with a bunch of management. I'll pass it to, let me see who still needs to go. Santi.
Hello, guys. I've been giving it some thoughts for legal, and I honestly think that the legal working group is probably gonna have very low amount of work once we launch. On the other hand, it's good to have some sort of funds in the event we run into an issue and we need to react quickly. So my sense is that we should have an initial funding, but not for a regular spend, because probably we're not going to need to do that much work, but to use it quickly in the event we need to react fast. Because my personal sense is that the legal working group is going to have to jump into when there's an issue, and an important issue, more than a regular working basis like we've been doing, creating all the documents and all the terms that we've done for the launching. So that's and I think that can be easily done through an initial funding through conviction voting, and keep the funds on sub-DAO or on a Gnosis safe or whatever we decide as the legal working group, and just have it ready in the event we need to run fast. That's my personal sense. I don't think we need any ongoing mechanism for compensation, because I really don't think there's going to be work on an ongoing basis on legal. And that those are my thoughts. And there's another thing I wanted to share. I couldn't meet yesterday. I couldn't join yesterday's meeting, but I personally am thinking on stepping back once we go into the commons upgrade. I think my work on legal is going to be ending. I'm not an expert, so there is not too much I can do in the event we run into a legal issue, because I'm not a legal guy, and I don't think it has too much sense to keep leading the group. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I don't know if there is anyone else missing from the stewards. Oh yeah, Tam. Sorry on that. I passed to you.
That's okay. So I'll set my timer too. I really appreciated everything everyone has said so far. And I think when I was doing the proposal for the stewards, there's a natural tension between attracting the talent, like attracting people that, that can stay and continue to work in the TEC, but also making sure that the stewards and not other working groups, but like that what the operations of the DAOs, like, so it's kind of what Chewy was referring to either, is like making sure that we care for the contributors, and that means to being able to reward them in ways that they can continue to expend their efforts in the TEC. And there's a tension with that, and like, but we want to support, like, if we end up burning 100,000 K a month in just DAO operations, how many TE projects are we going to be able to really support? So it's finding that balance between making sure that when we look at all of the DAO operations, like all of the working groups and what the burn rate is for all of the working groups, it doesn't end up meaning that we will probably not be able to support very many token engineering projects, because we've actually spent all of what we've raised on DAO operations. So I just feel like that's the big, that's the elephant in the room. That's the, like, how do we balance that natural tension between making sure that the funding that we raised goes to the mission of our DAO versus making sure that we are taking care of our contributors and ourselves, and that we do we do want to attract people who can come and enjoy working here, but also are able to make ends meet. You know, it's not a mission of altruism to participate in the TEC. So that was the biggest tension I have, and I don't have an answer. So I'm going to drop that for everyone to share in my, feeling like bad fit. Like I'm like, I don't know how that fits. That's how it feels for me. Okay, so thanks for allowing me to go. I'm going to keep passing it around because there's a lot of people here with really great perspectives, and I'd love, Durgadas, if you can share your thoughts. You've been in our community forever, right? So I think you might have a lot of insight here. Thank you.
Yeah, so we were talking yesterday about what we could do to sort of make some of these things so we could see the shadow of things, and also just to take good decisions. It seems to me that the people who are running the individual working groups probably have the best idea about how which side of the Cynefin picture are they dealing with right now. So for example, with Santi's transition into the from legal, what he did was sort of very complex, and then it became complicated, and now it's going to be clear. So he's going to have less to do because everything's already stood up, right? And so then we can just make use of that, right? And I guess what I mean is each of the individual stewards, I think it would help a lot in sense making to try to see where in that narrative your particular working group is. So for example, with the gravity working group, we started off with a clear thing, and then it became more complicated, and now we're starting to get into the DAO space where it's going to just get downright complex. You know what I'm saying? So whereas the legal thing is headed clockwise, the gravity thing is actually headed anti-clockwise in terms of that. And I think it might actually when someone mentioned sense making, I think it would help people a lot to contextualize and make sense around where the different working groups are, and where they are in their evolution and what their needs are, and so on. If we had a clear sense of the kind of action mode that's appropriate for that particular working group at that particular time. And if we're constantly checking in with each other around that, then we have a shared framework in which to contextualize some of those understandings. So that's and then see what I think a lot of what a lot of benefit that Livy and Griff in particular have is they do have a sense of these kinds of things, but not everybody has participated in the DAO space since it was created. You know what I'm saying? Like so in order to be able to help with onboarding and that sort of thing, having a shared sense making framework in which we understand what the decision spaces of each of those four things are might go a long way toward trying to make it so that we all feel like Griff instead of we're all just trying to figure out what's going on. So that's my perspective.
Cool, and I can pass it for you. I can pass to Craig. Craig, if your audio is working, I would pass to you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
That's great. Oh, yeah, I'm super distracted and only slightly following, so I'm just gonna pass. Thanks, Tim.
Cool, no problem. I saw Manu here, but I think he's gone now. What about Ryder?
I'm here. I've been here. Hello.
Oh, hi. Sorry. If you just to say, I'm going to ask everyone if they want to speak about this subject, considerations for working group funding. And if you don't, feel free just to pass so we can keep going. Would you like to say anything about it, Ryder?
I will certainly give my 2 cents. Thank you. I still remember harking back to what Livia said about using like kind of all the reward systems together. And I still think that that's an awesome idea. And I still think that that is taking on so much. And I haven't seen TEC use source cred, but I've heard it's been tested. And I'm kind of curious if there would end up being a working group that just wants to be beta testing for source cred and to see how that distributes funding throughout their working group. So if someone is curious in that, in doing that for their working group, I would love to help and support that effort. I'm also super interested in the integration. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Cool. Are you working with source cred writer?
That was my gateway to Web3. Yeah, I'm an instance maintainer and I work on the treasury at source cred and among many other things.
Okay, neat, cool, good to know. And Nick, if you have any thoughts you want to share.
I guess something to think about is like when working groups become more fractal. For example, they break off into like smaller groups depending on time zones or like specific projects they're working on, like how that's gonna work.
Thanks. And Digam, Eve? Hello.
I'd like to add one thing, and
please.
I'm just thinking like if we, for example, SoftGov wants to just rely on the reward system, but then other groups might be asking for funds, and I think that could create a disbalance, where people from SoftGov would be less rewarded than other working groups because the other working groups are being rewarded by praise and source credit, but at the same time for their funding. So yeah, it could create disbalance. So I think whatever we might decide, we should get some balance so some people do not feel more rewarded than others. So
could I ask you a question, Tam? How like, are we incorporating operational costs, like things like services that we're using, maybe it's Dashlane, maybe it's HubSpot, things like that, within these funding proposals? Should those things be included?
I would imagine it might be its own separate proposal, but maybe Griff has some perspective on this. And then I would love to go back to what Septimus just said, but maybe I'll pass that to Griff. I think that's maybe how other
Apologies.
Yeah, I would say there could be just like a small operations budget that we ask for and someone maintains.
Yeah, that sounds logical. What Septimus said really also struck for me. It's something that I think maybe Livia and I had a conversation about, just to sort of like how do there would be some working groups whose contributors are receiving some sort of base and then rewards on top. And then it seems like the contributors at working group of working groups that are just reward based would sort of start out like they might get the same amount of rewards, but they wouldn't have some sort of base. And it is a big question mark in my mind as well. And it's shaped my thinking a little bit. And in my thinking through the stewards, I tried to imagine based on what we have now. First, I think it's worth separating the role, if it's okay if I can go into this now, if it's worth separating the roles of the stewards, but then there's people who are participating in the Scrum events, in planning, in sprint boards, in retrospective, in the reviews, and it's a different workload. And it's, I would say, at least depending on the steward, but it's like the minimum workload would be about 5 hours for being a steward and at least 10 hours or more, much more really, for being a working group coordinator lead. And so I tried to separate these two roles so that we could have a base compensation for each role and then the combined for the person who's doing, or the contributor who's doing 2 roles. And based on what we have now, if I went through, this is sort of like very low base, if there's just a base salary, and the idea would be there's this there's this base reward, base compensation, base stipend, that's the word I'm looking for, like a base stipend just for accepting to be a steward and the responsibilities that come with it. It's actually, there's a lot of it that's expected of a steward. And then would get rewards on top of that would be this sort of low model, which, I mean, if you look at it, it really breaks down to $20 a week. So it's, when you put that in perspective of like, how do we make sure that our stewards are feeling valued enough, and I think that there'd be a lot of hope that the reward system does this balancing to make sure that rewards are distributed to people who have no or a very low base stipend. And then on the higher end, 11,000 a month, it does also feel like, how are we going to support any projects if we're burning 120K a month just for stewards and then each working group, so I really struggle to find some sort of way to take into account the factors of there's a reward system, there's this working group, and all working groups are also doing work for other working groups. So I just wanted to put that on the table. And I just like to ask if anyone has some thinking that they'd like to share around that might help untangle this Gordian knot.
I have some thoughts on that. I feel like a lot of what we're doing now is somehow speculative because we don't know how our economy is going to behave yet. So we don't know the value of the token, how the bonding curve is going to work, how people are going to come in, what types of projects we're going to support, how the value is going to be created. I mean, we have some ideas of that, but then we don't want people that have been contributing for such a long time to now feel like they don't have a sense of security. So I think these proposals are very valuable for creating the sense of security for everyone that is involved in the TEC now. And it's good to hear different thoughts from different people because this reflects a little bit like the needs that every person has. But this will probably change a lot once we see how the economy is behaving and how we behave with that. So I like what Griff said once, that it's great to have all of these different types of proposals because we'll have multiple experiments running at the same time and we'll see which one is working best. And I think we'll be able to have somehow like a feedback loop within this process, and this will help us adjust with time and see what works better.
I will go ahead, Griff. Sorry.
Definitely not all you, Nate.
I was just going to say that one thing that does concern me is by having that type of system, we kind of put an obstacle to having organizational flexibility in terms of creating new working groups, incorporating new stewards, new organizational temporary structures like committees or task forces or anything like that we may need. It's very difficult to think about a kind of a static reward system that doesn't account for organizational flexibility. And I just don't know the impacts of what it will have on that. And I agree it's early on, but I just wanted to throw those thoughts out.
Go ahead, Griff. Sorry.
Okay. I just want to say that, I think what's interesting is that a lot of these working groups now are becoming public goods for the token engineering space, specifically comms and gravity. They're not just TEC operations. They are providing token engineering value, and so I wouldn't consider those part of the DAO operations. Honestly, I'd consider those projects that we're lucky to have in our community. And then with SoftGov, transparency, legal, and communitas, those are operations, and I don't think and stewards, but I don't think that they need to be so expensive. And then they also get some support from other rewards, and we will see, as Livia said, about how much money we actually end up with, and we don't know the structure of the economy yet. If we have what the exit tributes will be and how much continuous flow that we have, and it'll be very interesting to see the how the volatility feeds a revenue stream into the common pool, because it's not like we just have this whatever we put into the common pool at the beginning. We will have a monthly revenue, and so it'll be very interesting to just have some experience on that, and then be able to decide on flows and such. And after that, we'll also be able to take on other income generating streams. And I think that the operational structure will support creating more income generation. So like, I don't know, like I was talking, we could sell TE Scouts cookies, right? That'd be really fun. And it could just, the money that we make above the cost goes to the community pool, right? And maybe those cookies are NFTs, or maybe they're actually delicious cookies. That would be great, you know? So it's not like we launch and then we just have this much money. We launch and then we try to coordinate value creation that further generates funding into the common pool. I'll pass it to you, Edu.
Yeah, we had this conversation with Septi and Ivy regarding where is the boundary in between having a cost of living and what is the perspective of working in a space or contributing to a community like this, where there is a value line and there is a common goal, and how do you balance your sort of kind of daily life with that common goal? And I think, and then I reflect on, if there is someone who contribute to 5 working groups and that person receive an income from all of these working groups, how much that will represent to the DAO as an expense. So I feel there could be a very interesting analysis and more of a data analysis once we have more draft, to put that into a graphic that we can see how long that is sustainable, and then we can sort of see what will be as an estimated amount of costs for operational or DAO-wise, and to project, just based on draft, just to project how far we are getting from reality, or how close are we from actually being operational and rational with these expenses. I think that could be interesting to run a data analysis of that, of this budget that we are proposing before even sending the proposals. And then it could be also interesting to set a gap and say no one can earn more than, let's say, 5K from working groups. Because I feel we need to set some boundaries, as Ostrom basically also says. We need to set some boundaries to also understand that, yes, you can contribute as much as you want, but there should be a gap. Otherwise, that person will be very expensive for the sustainability of the project. Back to you, Tim.
I want to say that I agree with Edu, and I think that like someone who wants to contribute in all working groups is just like trying to gain the system. Because if you really want to contribute, you also need to focus and spend some time in the working group. And like I feel like when someone collaborates in a working group, they also spend and commit to certain responsibilities that maybe if you are like contributing to all working groups, you are not going to have the same impact as if you like deliver and focus on 1 or 2 working groups. Like I would love to collaborate more in other working groups, but for me, like the load that I have in Gravity and the small contributions that I do in the other ones are in like 2 or 3 are enough. Like I don't know. That's what I think.
I wanna like major props to Eduardo's idea of putting a cap on individual rewards. I think that the reward system could probably maybe try to keep that into account. And also there is like there was an example of a contributor in the space that was double charging for work, and ended up getting kind of caught for that. They were double charging from different orgs for doing the same work. And the orgs didn't know it was happening, and that actually, because of a lack of conflict, it's actually one of my favorite examples of why we need Gravity, because then that person got ostracized from all of the communities that they were working with. And and so I think we just also, we're going, the coordination around payments will be difficult, and it will be sensitive, and we'll just have to take it pretty seriously.
Griff, where can we learn more about that?
I don't like airing people's laundry, but it's
Oh, it's laundry. Okay, it sounds like a really important thing to talk about. To me, it actually sounds like I'm like, what's wrong with that? So it's an interesting that I have such an opposite perspective, you know?
I think the thing that was wrong is that the other orgs were not aware that there wasn't clear communication that was happening, and then they felt like, and it was there. I don't think that there's anything wrong with it if it's transparent, but there were other also microaggressions or micro issues where people felt like the person was also claiming some work that they didn't do and these sorts of things, you know? And so it was like a lot of small things that added up to no conflict resolution and ostracism.
Totally.
I want to jump in if I can. And I would say that I think that this is something that is solved on the social layer and maybe doesn't. I like the idea of a contributor participating in more than one working group. I think that if a person that we should trust that everyone has agency to participate where and how they want. And if they have the capacity to participate in a meaningful way in 2, 3, 5, 6 working groups, I mean, kudos. We want that person to be in, we wouldn't want to block that person or limit the person, you know, doing what it is that bringing the skill that they have to more than one working group. But I think the case that Griff was highlighting was more along the lines of trying to pass off the same piece of work to multiple different groups as if it was unique for that group. So it's sort of like, oh, it took me 10 hours to do this. Oh, it took me 10 hours to do this. Oh, whatever. And that's a little more scammy. But I think that contributors should always be able and encouraged to contribute in any way that they can. But I would imagine if a person's working for or contributing to 4 different working groups, there are probably different levels in which they're contributing. Some may be deemed, compensatable by the working group, and some may not.
So basically, Web3 is poly, and we need to all remember that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, remember all the stewards. Remember to update your slides and after them. Bye.
Yeah, we're at the top of the hour. Thanks, everyone. This was a fascinating conversation.
Thank you for facilitating, Tam.
Thanks,
Bye, everyone. See you later.
Thanks, everyone.